Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Man Behind the Curtain. I'm Randy Young, the guy in the red shoes, and I've been in the video production business my entire career, and it's taken me around the world a few times. But more importantly, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the most creative people in television, and boy, do they have stories to tell about the business and the people who make it happen. We've always been told, ignore the man behind the curtain, but you can talk to me. Okay, let's get started. I'm sitting here with two, I think, pillars in the industry. David Brumbach, technical producer, technical director, and Mike Sensheimer, executive producer of August Jackson. Hi, guys.
Hey, Randy.
How are you doing this morning?
Good. Fantastic.
Thank you for coming in. All right, let me just touch each of you. Dave, if you would go first. A brief bio, history, where you've been, what brought you here?
Oh, wow. Well, I started out kind of as a teenager working as a camera operator for the local CBS affiliate and kind of got bitten by the bug, and through the course of moving up and trying to progress, discovered this industry and did a little back and forth for a while, and then just got tired of seeing inefficiencies in our industry, and so it kind of made me want to fix that, and so that's kind of what took me to being a technical director.
Okay, Mike?
A little more circular route. I started my career at a record label. I was a publicist.
Okay.
And if you'd asked high school me what you wanted to do, it would have been that. And I got there and I hated it. I hated everything about it. And I had to try to kind of figure out a way to find something tangential to it that I still really enjoyed, and started writing for a music website, and the editor-in-chief of that website was creative director AJ. So they needed a PA for a show, and she had sent out an email to a couple people she knew, and I jumped at it, and I think I was making like $25 an hour. I thought I was ripping them off. It was I couldn't believe they were paying me that much to do PA stuff, and I ended up doing that job, and then another job, and then just kind of kept putting my foot in the door to keep more and more open. Then eventually got hired on full time as a production coordinator, and I've been there ever since.
How many years has that been?
About 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's fast forward to today. And one of your clients calls you up and says, we have this show to do. It's going to be somewhere. It's going to do this. And we want to have this happen. And you get awarded the business.
Yep.
What's your next move?
First step is I'm looking at staffing. I'm looking at the dates, because it's almost guaranteed we have another show that's overlapping with that one. And so, that's my biggest focus is who's available, who fits the client, kind of the client personality and the dynamic of the show, as well as who's going to fit the internal team dynamic. Because if that's good, it's going to bleed through to the client, and they're going to feel that, and it's going to be really good. So that's always my first focus is who are you going to put on it, who makes sense.
When does the creative kick in?
Ideally as soon as possible, right? Usually we get the main logistics out of the way first. We're trying to understand the budget, the dates, what property we're at, and then we really start diving into the creative from there. So it's pretty early on, and what we call the discover,
Sure.
phase of the project.
There's always a lot of research has to go into it, and
Absolutely.
client
Yes.
participation and their goals and such. Dave, same question. When he calls you, obviously, you're on the list, and top on the list. What's your first move? What do you do then?
Well, typically after, they would probably bring me in, not at the very beginning, but after they have a general idea of what the creative direction they want to go with the show. And then I'll take a look at that. I'll look at the venue we want to go into, and I'll start doing a similar personnel search that Mike's done, see who's available, get all these people locked in for the dates, make sure that they all mesh, and start looking at how best the creative will fit into the space that we have to work with, the clients picked out. And then I will start working on all the technical plans and see if we need to make any alterations or adjustments so that we can, fit within our constraints, because every venue has constraints you have to, work within. And once we get isolated down on a direction, then I will move ahead with vendor selection and putting together the cost structure and sort of the approach for how we're going to install the show and get all the departments ready to get into actually delivering the production.
What I've always been amazed with, David, is that your use of the technology and the computer power and the design and how you document everything all the way going through. How does that work? And Mike, how do you interact with that? What's your opinion of that?
I mean, if you talk, like on the show that we're on right now, if you talk to the guys in that ballroom, they will tell you how easy Dave makes their life. And it's the same for me. I mean, yeah, I just joke around with Dave that he has the most beautiful backstages because the way that they're just set up and everything. And, you know, it's not something that every TD really pays that close attention to. Dave does. And that gets pulled through with the Dropbox, or the Dave box as we call it, which has literally everything that you could ever need. I always feel bad asking Dave for something because I know it's in the Dropbox. Probably just haven't gone and dug too far. So, but to have that level of, you know, that he's paying attention to in terms of the detail, it's just so much, you know, stress off my plate and everybody else's, because we know that what needs to be set up to get our jobs done is going to be set up and it's going to work. So, you know, that trust and partnership is basically everything, right? When walking into the room, knowing that everything's going to be okay, just generally speaking, is a great place to start.
Dave, yeah, what led you to that kind of technology? How did you put that together?
Well, when I first started getting into doing corporate theater, I was doing video. I was engineering and directing, and I started taking on just a bigger view of what was happening with the whole space. And I wanted to try to improve that process. And so I started playing around with a piece of software called Minicad, which is the precursor to Vectorworks. And I started just doing general room layouts just so we could get our own departments ready. And then as I started transitioning into becoming more of a technical director, that was super valuable for me to be able to just see how everything's going to weigh out. I mean, really, and I think you have to have, as a TD, you need to have the ability to like see things in 3D space in your mind and just have a sense of spatial awareness. And being able to use a program like that at the time, it wasn't nearly as advanced as it is now. But I continued down that vein, and then I started developing a series of schedules and paperwork that allows me to deliver information in an easy way for the crew to digest. I mean, to me, my job is relatively straightforward. I need to create an environment for success. Exactly. And if I can do that and kind of be in the background and allow all of our wonderful technicians and operators and designers to do what they need to do and not be encumbered by deficiencies somewhere in the chain, then I've done my job correctly.
You do it marvelously. I'm just amazed every time. So let's talk about the challenges that you face. You have challenges in both of your jobs. They have to interact. There's that Venn diagram and where that overlaps.
Sure.
Mike, you've got the same thing with your clients, and both the budget challenge and the creative challenge. How do you manage that? What's the biggest challenge you face?
It's almost always time, and then whatever kind of local situation we're walking into in terms of, you know, exclusives and the labor rules within, you know, the property of the venue. That's a lot of conversations that Dave and I have. You know, we always want as much time as possible, but especially in, you know, hotels and these properties, time is money, and, you know, the client's got to draw a line somewhere, and then we need to make what they want to have happen work within kind of the allotment that we've been given. So it's a lot about making the schedule work, about making sure that we're not, you know, understanding the local labor rules. You know, we're not running everyone into, you know, double and triple time and coming back for a short turn, or
Sure.
If we are going to do that, we know about it well before we get on site. So that's a lot of what Dave and I, you know, really discuss, and just trying to figure out how to put out the best possible product, whether, you know, we're at Caesars or we're at the Dallas Omni, or, you know, we're in Orlando, wherever it might be.
Well, it's up to me to discover a lot of those constraints that we end up working with, whether it's labor rules, things that the venue has imposed upon us, the way their exclusivity contracts, whether that relates to rigging, labor, different jurisdictional issues, permitting, dealing with the municipalities, and then vendor constraints, who's doing what. So it's up to me to discover all those things and kind of put the planning in place that allows all of this stuff to kind of happen seamlessly where nobody really realizes any of it's taking place.
Mike, you have to put the creative process in there too, and let the people that you've hired, your art directors and creative directors, express the client message creatively.
Yep.
How does that intermix with Dave's job and most particularly budget as well? I mean, that has to be a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's a back and forth for sure. I mean, usually what happens is Dave and I have worked together for a really long time, and we've also worked in a lot of these rooms and done, these shows together in these rooms. So a lot of times we kind of know what we're getting into, but, generally speaking, we'll get the CAD and we'll start creating that set design and putting that creative around it. And then we give it to Dave and say, can we do this? Right?
Is this possible?
Right. And sometimes it's, shouldn't be an issue. And sometimes it's, there ain't no way, right? The rigging points don't align. We don't have time for that load in. That's going to have to be ground supported, whatever it might be. And then, then it becomes a back and forth and a collaborative effort where we, start with the dream that really ties into the client's, the creative and what the clients want. And then we have reality over here, and we meet in the middle, and we make it work. And again, that's why it's so great, working with someone like Dave, who is really thinking through, everything from rigging points to Firewatch, right, and everything in between, so we aren't running into problems on site that nobody anticipated.
Do you? We've been around a long time. All of us have been, and I'm sure you remember the days when clients either had money and/or ideas, or the production companies had the ideas, and some of them were pretty crazy. Those days seem to have waned off, and it's become more a straight line business meeting. Is that what you feel these days? And do you miss the old days of the creative, wacky ideas?
I mean, no. Not. We always are trying to ground the creative that we pitch and bring to clients in a true business message. We're lucky that a lot of our clients, do really well, right? They're Fortune 100, 500 businesses. But being genuine and authentic in your messaging and really being honest with your audience, be it your sales force, your most important clients, about, where your business is. No amount of, marching bands and people flying in from zip lines is going to distract from that graph pointing straight down if that's the way it looks, right? So, these meetings are big investments for these clients, and we really try to push them to, leave the kind of the flash and the trash, at the door, and come in with a strong message that's going to be really worthwhile for the audience and for the money that they're spending.
It's message driven then.
Yeah. I will say, when I came into the industry, I think I might have just missed a lot of this goofiness. I was catching some of it on the tail end. I've heard some of the stories from you guys that can't imagine doing it.
Oh, there were some crazies.
Yeah. So.
And Dave, you faced a lot of those crazies in those days too, when they wanted to drive trains in the ballrooms and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's going to fall on you to make it happen.
Yeah, it's true. It can be tricky sometimes, and it's getting the right vendor partners in place to pull something like that off is key, and having people who really understand what that's trying to deliver, and then the constraints that we have to work with, because it's all ends up being what you can do in a space, and there are limitations, and there are things that you can do creatively to circumvent some of those limitations. And so through a collaboration with our vendor partners and other specialists who do things like this, like in Vegas we would call a company that would be specific to just flying people in on stage, and or if you need turntables and pyro, there's specific people that you look to for those things. And if you need to have the hotel cut a hole in the wall so you can bring in a semi truck or something, then there's somebody for that too. And finding those people sometimes can be a bit of a challenge, but once you do find them and develop a working rapport, then it makes those implementing those things a lot easier. But you're right, it has kind of tapered off over the years, and things are a little bit more business focused now. And messaging, it seems like it would be a natural transition to me, because that frill and fluff doesn't really lend anything to the message they're trying to deliver. It's just theatrics. I think if anything, today what I find happening more so is just live entertainment. We'll get some A-list headline entertainers, or people who, like we had a spoken word poet on one of the last jobs that we did together, who really knocked it out of the park on the opening. It was fantastic. And so those things, I think, lend themselves more to helping carry a message that the client really would like to convey to the audience, more so than the crazy wackiness of days gone by.
It's inspirational.
Yeah.
It's inspirational words and actions. One of the things I like to get into in each of these is the fact that, well, facing facts, we're not getting any younger. And it's hard to find younger people starting their careers out that understand what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And that you could learn and mentor, you could teach and mentor. How important is that to this business, Mike?
I mean, it's hugely important, right? It's the future of the business. I take that really seriously as someone that's, started as a production coordinator and worked their way up. It wasn't lost on me, the opportunities and the coaching and mentoring that I got from you guys, from, everyone that really surrounded me. And it's a really caring business, I think, in that sense. Like, everybody's always willing to teach and learn. I mean, I spent 30 minutes this week at the lighting board with DC. Just let me play around with it, right? Because I just wanted to learn a little bit more about, how he does what he does. So, for me, I've made a huge effort in growing my team at AJ to really start at the bottom and grow it from the bottom versus hiring in senior producers and EPs. I put a huge emphasis on bringing in PAs and production coordinators and really trying to, to grow them up as fast as possible and as, their skill set will allow. Because that's the opportunity that was given to me, and I feel, very much a responsibility to kind of pay that forward. And it's such a cool, different industry.
Mm-hmm.
Until you're in it, I don't think you really even know about it. And so that's a fun thing too, is to bring people into something that they didn't even know existed until, they got to AJ.
I think there's a whole volume of people out there who don't know that this
No
industry
idea.
exists.
No idea.
It just, they walk into a ballroom and stuff happens and they don't even think about it.
A lot of people don't ever go to conventions or shows or meetings, and so
Right.
just this entire concept is foreign to them. And it's such a big thing that kind of happens half in the shadows, half not. It's neat to bring people into that.
And I ask people all along, if you met a stranger on the street or you're in an elevator and you say hi and they say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" How do you explain it?
Well, for me, I've kind of gotten it down to, if you've ever been to a rock concert or a Broadway play, or you've happened to be fortunate enough to pop into a television studio, imagine taking all those things and putting it all together into a remote location that we will set up, operate, and remove again within a 10-day period of time. That's what I am responsible for doing. And so that's kind of how I describe it. And some people go, so you work in computers.
Right. Yes.
So it's really hard to describe what we do. It's such a niche industry, and it really isn't very big, as Mike said. And back to your point about bringing people up and paying it forward, I think it's incredibly important. And for me, usually it's somebody has that interest. Not everybody is inclined to be a technical director. I mean, I was terrified of being a technical director when I first started out, because I understood the gravity that sits on that person's shoulders as far as pulling off one of these events. And so for me, it's really just like fear of failure that has, driven me to do the things and and to, put the processes in place that I do. But I've had the good fortune of being able to work with a lot of younger people who are really interested in making the process better, and working with them and helping to guide them to see and understand how you approach doing that has been super rewarding for me. It's something I really enjoy.
Well, you do something that amazes me. You walk in an empty room, you build a civilization that lasts for 5 days, 6 days, 10 days, and then you leave an empty room. That's daunting to me, frankly.
It was daunting to me at first as well. It still is sometimes.
Yeah. All right. So we've talked about how you get the business, how we go about building the room, making it work. What happens then? If the room is empty, now what happens?
Like we're done with the show.
Yes.
You know, well, I'm going into reconciliation, so Dave and I are talking about how well we did and how much money we saved, and so that sounds good.
Let's hope you're saved the money.
Yeah, right, true.
But you know, like at AJ, we talk about you know, we have kind of a buzz and hum model where you know, the buzz is this big event and it hits, and then you know, we kind of peter out. How are we, you know, taking advantage of the momentum and the energy created at the meeting? A lot of times that comes in the form of, you know, a comms campaign. Sometimes that's really fast. We do, you know, quick sizzle recaps of the event that we can send out, you know, every day. And then we do kind of a longer form messaging recap for, you know, maybe those that could come. But sometimes we're pulling through those comms campaigns all the way until the next event. And for clients that have these annuity events that happen every year, multiple events that happen every year, the goal is really not to just think about them as discrete things that happen, but a continuum in the engagement with that core audience from one event to the other. So if you think about it like that, and you have some, you know, really good, a smart comms campaign in between those, then that hum kind of always stays at a certain level, and you can keep that energy up. And you know, more importantly, you can build on messaging from one meeting to the other, which makes it a more enriching and fulfilling experience for, you know, for us as the agency, but certainly for the audience.
Sure. And you want to build a momentum with your client and with other clients to look forward to the future. You got a future to build.
Yeah,
for the
absolutely.
company.
Yep, absolutely.
It's not just when the room empties, David. There's more to it, like Mike was saying.
Right. Yeah, once we clear out, you know, we want to leave the room just the way we found it when we came in. So we maintain relationships with the venues we're going into. But then after that, as Mike mentioned, it's about reconciling the budget, getting everybody paid who was involved with the event, and then also analyzing what we did, if there was any place for improvement, taking lots of notes that we can apply for next time. And that process can be a week or up to a month after an event ends, depending on the size and scope of it. And but really, it's about the learnings that we can take away and from it, and see if there's anything we can improve for the future.
Experience builds future.
Mm-hmm.
Experience builds success. So in terms of success, Mike, what's a successful show to you or to AJ?
I mean, you know, number one is always, it's, you know, is the client happy? You know, did the messaging get across? Did we visually and graphically tell the story that the clients wanted to tell? You know, for me, from production, it's, were we on time? Were we on budget? But yeah, I mean, that really simplistic metric of, is the client happy? Did it land, right? You know, we will get, and we also execute post-event surveys that give us a much more, you know, tip of the spear, fine, you know, response in terms of, you know, did we hit the mark and did people leave motivated? But, you know, were vibes good and did we come in on budget, or two pretty good notes? That's how I you know, usually know if an event was successful.
Sure.
For me, it is, did we have any issues throughout the project? If we left there and the crew was able to deliver a spectacular job where there was absolutely no technical hiccups or issues whatsoever, and there was a good synergy amongst the crew as they were working together to deliver the project, to me that's success. And also if we do come in on or under budget based on just the way and the professionalism that everybody brings to the project and the way they work, To me, that's really a successful project. And as Mike said too, if the client's happy. And then I look at, did we do everything we could to, deliver the best we could on that? And fortunately, we built up teams of people over time that I think we can say, yes, we really have done that. And that's also one of the fun parts about this is the team building, discovering great talent and kind of bringing them into the roster and seeing where they fit within the mix. And that's a gratifying part of a successful event too.
The interaction of people and how that contributes to the success of the show. All right, we've all had challenges in shows, funny stories, good stories. What's the biggest challenge you've faced?
A lot of times these challenges happen with stuff that's, kind of out of our control. With Dave, in all the years we've been working, I think the biggest challenge we had was some opening experience live talent that, I think maybe wasn't quite ready for, the professionalism the corporate circuit, demands. And but it was something the clients really wanted, and you do what you got to do, which is work through it moment by moment. But after we worked through it and made it through that part of the show, I think a lot of it was just reminding everybody to just take a breath. Things are going to be just fine. It's very much a team sport, and if you watch baseball, errors can be contagious, right?
Sure.
One drop pop fly leads to a box ground ball, and all of a sudden it's runners on second and third, nobody out. You got to take a second to just breathe. I mean, what we do is very, very important and means a lot to a lot of people, but we're not saving babies. It's gonna be okay. And I think reminding everyone that, and then kind of falling back on the really consistent team dynamic that we've built over time, and the immense amount of talent and professionalism that we have surrounding us, really will carry us through most any situation, especially ones that are out of our control. That's what landed our lap anyways.
I think a lot of the surprises that seem to be out of control happen fall on you, David.
Yes, that's true,
And
unfortunately.
you have to solve the issue. How do you do that? How do you maintain your composure in the midst of everybody else's fire?
Well, you have to have the ability not to allow things to get under your skin, to be able to process what's going wrong at the moment and set aside any thoughts of who's at fault or why this is happening, and look instead toward what's the best way to fix this solution? What's our next step? A lot of times, we'll have technical issues. We've had things like back in the days where we're using projection a lot. You'll have a projector that explodes. That's just going to derail the project if you don't get another one there. And having vendors who are capable of being able to get something overnighted cross country and picking it up at 5 a.m. at the airport and bringing it in and having it installed, before walk-in the next morning and up and running, it's a great thing to have vendors who could do that. It's also a bit of an adrenaline rush, and I think people kind of feed on that, and it kind of pushes people to kind of achieve a little bit more, and being able to accomplish something like that, like pull it off, especially from my perspective down to the vendors, to the individual team members or the technicians who are working on it. When they can make something like that happen, it just vindicates why they're doing what they're doing in the first place.
We've all been in the business, like I say, long enough. We've seen the changes over the years. What's the next change, big change? What do you think? Where do you think it's going, Mike?
I guess the obvious answer would be AI, though I haven't seen it from a technical perspective really, dive into too much. I think there's a lot of opportunity to start bringing things like Unreal Engine into any ballroom in the country. It's not quite, I think, at a scalable solution just yet, but to do things in Unreal that a presenter can interact with in real time, I think is something that we, very well might see soon. But, one of the cool things and things I learned during COVID was you just can't replace people getting together in person. and that energy and that feeling. And so while there's a lot of things probably that can happen from a technical end, I think kind of the core of the industry will remain to be really, really consistent. And, you know, because the secret sauce is just getting people together in a room.
From a technical point of view, where is it going? What do you want to see? What do you think will happen?
I stopped trying to predict what's going to happen and just try to keep an open mind, because you never know how the technology is going to change and what's going to be there. But I think keeping an open mind to what's available and what new things come about is really important. We've made some big advances recently in just the color and being able to replicate really fine color on LED. That was something that just a couple years ago was incredibly hard to do based on the nature of how the manufacturing was on those. And now we're at a point where if you deploy the correct color process, like the show we're on right now, we sent a colorist all samples of all the media, and he's extracting fine color detail out of every sample of every brand, out of the skin tones of the people in the video content, and then creating profiles that we then load into the LED on site, and the processors are able to replicate, and then we go through that same process on site. And that's something that we just were not able to do, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago. And it's made the experience much better for the clients, and it also has improved our efficiency. God, just when I first started using LED on shows, you turn the thing on and whatever was last saved in it, you know, doesn't match anything you have. And God forbid if there's a client in the room who at that point and they see it and they go, oh my gosh, what is that all about? And you spend the rest of the night trying to tweak it in. The process we're deploying now.
Spends the rest of the night trying to explain why it's
right, yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
So now we're able to go in and by the time we put the first piece of anything on the screen, it's 90% there. And that speeds up our ability to be ready to get into the show, and just allows Mike and the production team and all the operators to be able to do what they need to do faster.
From all the shows that I work on, and I know we all work for different clients and different times and different people, but I think your explanation and your use of that technology is leaps ahead of so many other people that I run across. And I so respect the fact that you're recognizing that need and that how it improves the delivery, not only the content, but the message. If the message isn't delivered with quality in mind, the message just doesn't get delivered.
Right. You know, it speaks back to what we were talking about, you know, Dave's level and the team's level of attention to detail. You know, all that work that happens up front, you know, I've never had the CMO of the CPG company tell me that label looks off. Because to your point, when that happens, everything's coming to a halt and we have to stop and figure out what we're going to do next.
Right.
But when the colors are perfect and everything's right and that conversation never happens, because we had a conversation about it in pre-pro and everything continued to go smoothly, I mean that's really where the Venn diagram, right, that you're talking about really comes together.
Yeah.
Right. And it makes your job so much more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
And I think that's your job, to make his job comfortable, my job to make both your jobs comfortable.
Right, yeah.
And to deliver the message to the best we can. And I think you guys do it as good, if not better, than anybody in the industry. And I want to thank you for being a part of this little event here.
Oh, thank you, Randy.
Thank you very much.